Niklas, I think his name was. And he had been told by his family that his last heart attack was going to be, his most recent heart attack was going to be the last one, and that he really needed to stay home, and he needed to stop going out and sitting at the coffee shop, drinking the strongest coffee, and he was just going to collapse one of these days at the coffee shop, and that would be the end. And I remember, and he found ModPo, and his grandchildren had to help him with the technology, and he was the most relentless student. There is no way in hell, when I signed on to be an assistant professor at the University of Pennsylvania in 1985, that it could have possibly considered being Niklas's teacher in the last months of his life. There's not any way. That's teaching. I mean, come on. We have the tools. Why the hell aren't we doing it?
Welcome to the Musical Innertube. I'm Don Rooney.
I'm John Timpane.
On this podcast, we talk to interesting people about their interesting lives, jobs, hobbies, and passions.
Difference makers who really make a difference. Welcome to the Musical Innertube. Today our guest is Al Filreis. He's at the University of Pennsylvania, and I would tell you that he's a wonderful writer with a brand new book. He's a professor of English. And for many years, he's been associated with something called Writer's House on the campus of the University of Pennsylvania. And I first met Al back in 1991 when he gave a tour of Writer's House for an article that I was writing for the Philadelphia Inquirer. And I was charmed with Al and with Writer's House and what they were doing. It was a very early example of what we now sort of glibly call the poetic community. There's tons of poetry communities online all over the place. And in many ways, Al has been at the forefront of that, but also of something called ModPo. What is ModPo, you ask? It's short for modern poetry, but even more, it's the title of what is sometimes called the million-person poetry course. And we're going to find out what this poetry course is about, how it got started, why it's such a singular beast in the world. I mean, think about a poetry course where almost 1 million people attend because they want to. Hello? We'll find out why, more, and how, and welcome to Al Filreis.
Thank you, John. Thank you so much. And Don, thank you. Good to be here.
So, okay. Al, as you know, I'm in the poetry world, so anything that is about poetry, I'm always interested in, but not everybody's like that. And when I mentioned to them that I know someone who has been part of a massive online course, they'll say, oh yeah, it's like those courses about ancient Greece or courses about Shakespeare where a guy stands up there and talks to you. Basically, a lecture course that you can sign up for and learn a lot if you want to. But that's not what this is. So could you tell us the very beginnings of the idea? Because that's what your new book is about. And you tell us I want you to tell us the title.
It's called The Classroom in the Crowd. And is it okay if I start with negatives?
Start with many negatives.
Can I
we've started the program with a negative with John.
Did I?
So, no,
with me.
John speaking. That's always a negative.
No.
It's always a turn on. So
Don has secret skills, which we'll somehow bring out in the next few minutes. Yeah, let me start grumpily. Does that sound good?
Grumpy is good. Cranky, be cranky.
You've cornered the market on cranky sometimes, John, so I'll just follow you. Look, you're right. Your intro is exactly right. Online courses, really education generally is there's a starting presumption that is a 19th century educational technology called the lecture, which people have proved every which way up and down is not good for learning. It's good, a little bit good for entertaining if you've got an entertaining performer, but it's not good for learning, remembering, absorbing, and certainly it's not good for responding. There are people who are skilled at taking a lecture as a performance and then responding to it in their own way by convening friends, over what we used to at small colleges call, midnight bullshit sessions, where you take the lecture that was delivered to you from on high like commandments, and then you sit around and you pick it apart. And that's where education begins. And by the way, that is what people remember about college. They don't remember the fancy lecture. They remember that they made the closest friends that they'll have for life later, batting around the ideas. So the assumption going into the second generation of open online courses, the first generation were 98 to about 2001,
Right.
97 to about 2000, the so-called dot-com bubble as it affected higher education. And there were some organizations, some schools. There was a program at Columbia called Fathom.com, which was going to be a profitable thing. MIT got involved, and Yale, and this was called courseware. Gag me with a spoon, courseware. Basically what this basically what this meant was that people who thought they had something to offer, and it was a generous impulse to be sure, to the people beyond a campus would somehow capture, sometimes literally scanning, sometimes using a primitive camera to record a lecture and then
Mhm.
uploading it and making it available in a primitive form of late 90s curriculum. And that just reproduced the lecture, and there's some pretty intrepid people who've always loved the so-called great courses, also something that I can't stand. The so-called great courses, which were sold as cassettes and then sold as VHS, and then,
Sure.
and they originally go back to what we call correspondence courses.
Right. You could write in and learn how to be a plumber or something.
Well,
Right.
and the plumber and classics, and it had a venerable tradition, especially for far-flung and under-resourced
Sure.
communities.
Like the little ads in the back of the comic books, learn to draw.
Well, yeah, except I think, Don, it was aspirational, and also 1950s, the original public broadcasting channels in the local regions, they had, sunrise semester.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right?
Mhm.
So
Yes.
that was pretty cool. That was all cool. And by the way, the first months and years of any such thing is pretty exciting. Didn't take PBS, as we now know it, very long to realize that nobody was watching that of any consequence. I watched it. By the way, I
So did
watched it. I think
So did I. I can't.
yes.
I have to admit, and I even recorded some of those. So I'm just going to
Yeah.
say,
I mean,
mea culpa.
can I romanticize a little bit about our generation? That is to say, we had a feeling that this was put together by Band-Aids and baling twine and bubble gum. We had a feeling that what we were watching was not wholly baked, fully baked, and that what we were doing is participating in the invention of something. And, I'd get up early enough to see the test pattern, and then that was exciting, right? Like like
The
it's not
Indian.
these guys
Yes.
are still getting up, they're still, and they're turning the old camera on, and there's a guy
Uh,
unscripted saying, "Today we're going to talk about the constellations,"
Right.
and I think I want to be romantic about that, because when I finally get to telling the story of Modpo, you're going to see that it was like sunrise semester. That it is like sunrise semester. Everything is Web 1.0. There's nothing. It is the furthest thing from AI, despite the fact that the current active enrollment is 97,462 people currently, 97,000 people. And those people are from 179 countries. And they are all having a sunrise semester feeling about contacting or being able to benefit from the conversations that I have convened from afar at my well-resourced university. There's a feeling like, are we getting away with something? This is really cool.
yeah.
So the lecture stunk. Is this a family-friendly podcast? Can I say sucked?
You could say
It
sucked.
sucked. Those lectures sucked.
They sucked, and they continue to suck, even though some of my best friends are lecturers, I'll
Yeah.
have to say.
We're
Okay.
not only
Mhm,
family
mhm.
friendly, but not only family friendly, we're truth oriented. So sucked.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay,
It
well,
sucks. It sucks.
that the lecture sucked is not just a truth, it is actually a contention, but whatever, okay. So we get to that point, and the bubble bursts, and the universities fled from this innovation in about 2000 very quickly.
Yeah.
very quickly, because all the partners who were promising lucrative deals for the universities and the faculty, they all went out of business, and no one. And universities don't exactly, they don't actually lead. They will follow. So you get to 2009, 2010, and the pipe is thicker and the speeds are faster and the smartphones are a few years in, and people are able to look at their phones and tablets and laptops and desktops, and they're able to run 10, 12-minute videos very easily. And the videos sort of sometimes have captions, and suddenly it seems possible that people outside academia who have a thirst for knowledge could actually tune in and follow with these platforms. One of the platforms was and still is Coursera, which is a profit-making platform. That's the one my post affiliated with, for better or worse. And then there was something called edX and Udacity and so forth.
Right.
And edX was a nonprofit associated first with Harvard and MIT. It was actually MITx and HarvardX, and then became edX. And
Yeah.
they had courses. So around 2010, 11, you had people, in my case from Stanford, coming around to the universities looking for partners. Now, I had already, through the Kelly Writers House, created an all online version of a course, used to be called English 88, Modern and Contemporary American Poetry, that I'd been teaching since 1983, and which I had been teaching online, partly online from 1994, okay, 94,
Yeah.
when many people didn't even have email, and 95, and then all online by 97, 98, in my own absolutely Rube Goldberg construction method of a audio cast, online this, and, using little clips and the good old World Wide Web. Imagine the World Wide Web actually
Oh,
being
man.
used for education. So scanning poems, putting them up, making them available, and people were interested in that. So when the people from Stanford came around,
This is in 2010 now.
the winter of 2011,
Mhm.
2012, right? Daphne Kohler and Andrew Ng came from Stanford. These were generous, sweet, public-minded scientists, really mathematicians and scientists, who, STEM people, who came from Stanford, and they had discovered that it was time to put their courses from Stanford online and made available to everybody. And when they did that, 150,000 people signed up for their courses. And they realized, wow, this is really a public service, because in their fields, I can't say this for them completely, but I think this is what they felt, that the Stanford students, including their grad students who were packed into a 45-person or 50-person classroom at Stanford, paying many, many tens of thousands of dollars for the experience, were perhaps not the right people in the world to be receiving this. Some of the right people in the world, but most of the right people who could benefit from what they had to share were actually in Paris and Kazakhstan and Tokyo. And that maybe if we could reach those people, we would actually expand the knowledge expansion that they were devoted to as educators. You know, no
Yeah.
academic, no academic is really only about the people sitting in front of them in the 20-person seminar,
Well,
right? So
we're supposed to be communicators, you know.
right. We're supposed to be communicators, and we had absented ourselves from the national discourse from about the early 70s, and with the real corporatization of the universities and our getting out of the 60s style activism. There were a lot of reasons for that. And in the professionalization of advising through the 1980s, you had the disappearance of faculty from the conversations that were happening at midnight, the evacuation of the college houses and the residential system. You had
Mhm.
people coming with great ambitions to be world-class scholars, and they couldn't spend any time with undergraduates. This is an exaggeration, but not much of one. Undergraduate education became a stepchild of the university during the peak year of research and graduate students and postdocs. this is like a really quickie summary of the situation.
No, but it's good. I mean, you're talking about the conditions on the ground and how things changed, and all those changes sort of are embodied in the very existence of ModPo, really.
Well, I think that's right, and that's why I really have enjoyed writing this book because I'm able to reflect on this history, really a personal history, because this currently is my 40th year at the university. So
Unbelievable.
I've seen a lot, right? So
Yeah.
anyway, so Andrew and Daphne come along and they say, "We've got this new system, we call it Coursera, and we're looking for faculty who might be intrepid enough to try to teach a course on our platform." And I was invited as one of the regular suspects, somebody who'd been involved with online teaching, and I immediately said, "No way, because your system, which is very creaky and just getting started, is all about lectures." And I never lecture. I never.
See how easy Al was to work with?
Yeah, right. I mean, this was the problem. They needed me. Well, Daphne in particular, Andrew's response was, "Well, don't you want to be famous?" Meaning, lecture on poetry and hundreds of thousands of people will see you and that will be good. And he meant that sincerely. I like him and I liked him then, but that wasn't my motive. My motive was public facing. The Writers House had already existed since 1995. And I felt that the best thing you could do is unlock the door. Literally, the door at the writer's house doesn't lock. I mean, it
It
locks.
doesn't lock?
Well, it locks at night, but we don't ever lock it.
Uh,
And we don't have a card swipe, so you don't have to be a pen person to get into the writer's house, as you know, John. So people come in. I wanted to take that model and see if a MOOC, a massive open online course, could go along with that vibe, that spirit. Well, they wanted little encapsulated lectures that would teach in a situation that actually goes back to before the 1950s, where the concept was a teacher teaches, a student learns, a teacher speaks, a student listens, a teacher stands, a student sits, a teacher has a tie on and the student doesn't, a teacher speaks and the student writes, and the teacher expects the student to come back with all that stuff that they got from on high. That bullshit, that failed system of
yeah, yeah.
acquiring knowledge. They accidentally wanted to reproduce that. And I said, "No, I'm not interested." And they came back to me and said, "Well, what would it take?" And what it would take is a development of a real discussion forum where people could watch a video. I'll explain what the videos were in a second. To watch a video and then instantly respond. And it had to be robust. So that was one thing. The other thing was I wanted some live webcasting that would be embedded in the platform so that people could actually we could do office hours and what we now do, which is a weekly webcast where people call in on the telephone. Telephony. It's like sunrise semester.
Yeah.
Sunrise,
Telephone.
sunset.
The
Yeah.
most amazing technology for education ever invented. Telephones. The idea is you call and you say, "Hi, am I on the air?" Really, we're talking about talk radio. It's
Yeah,
an ancestor of this very form that we're doing right now.
I think it's things so much of ModPo, is like that it's this hybrid of several approaches. I think, at least at one point, maybe still you can write papers, right?
Oh,
But
yeah, absolutely. You write
they are
papers
not graded?
ungraded,
Uh, r
and they
yeah.
are peer reviewed. They're peer reviewed. We guarantee that everybody who submits an essay will get at least 4 responses, and actually, probably the average is probably about 8.
Ugh,
So, I've had many people. And in my book, I actually profile these people. A lot of the book is about people that I've met who've been mostly adult learners, but also homeschooled kids, students with disabilities who can't get to school very easily, people who are literally far away from universities in far-flung locations, Western Canada, Western Asia, Africa, Southeast Asia. Uh, New Zealand, people who are hundreds of miles from the nearest university at best, who really want this knowledge, and their stories are all about writing an essay and getting 8 responses, which, by the way, if they drove 200 miles to the school, they might get, and I'm saying bad things about my colleagues, but they might get weeks later a few comments, handwritten in the margin or maybe typewritten. One reaction. And if they were grumpy that day, it wouldn't be very positive. You get 8 from peers, and no one is under duress to do it. So it's collective intelligence. It's non-AI, humane, collective intelligence. It's very simple.
And I want to make a point that perhaps we have not made clearly enough. This is all voluntary on the people's part. This is if you want to be part of ModPo, you can be part of ModPo, and it's and which brings up something I wanted to ask you about is you have a section in the book that runs through people's motivations for joining the course.
Yeah.
What is your favorite one? Because there are some wild reasons why people join the course.
Yeah. I mean,
I thought it was a nudist camp. That was really wild. That was a very that just threw me. But there were some amazing motivations. I'd love to hear because they're not. Yeah.
Why don't I just read 3 or 4 of them?
Would you please? Because it's just. It's such a great book, The Classroom and the Crowd, and really that's what you've been talking about so far is you've got the classroom on the one hand and the crowd, wherever it is, wherever you may be. Yeah.
Well, I'll read you a couple of them, John, and you can.
Yes.
This is exactly what you're talking about. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but ModPo says nudity to me. Right off.
Yes,
right
exactly.
Don, you're irrepressible.
Thank you.
A lab researcher we interviewed at length was motivated to join in search of, quote, a place of peace and to try, quote, inquiry-based learning as a direct parallel to his work in science. A retiree I met in a meetup in Brookline, Massachusetts, enrolled in order to ask herself, why am I alive? Her name is Helen, and she really was undergoing a kind of late life crisis. A teacher with whom I spoke by phone continues to re-enroll annually for 12 years now because the discussion causes her, quote, feel open in all directions in response to levels of knowledge that do not feel hierarchical. An accomplished entertainment industry entrepreneur I visited in Beverly Hills, by now a friend, was and still is motivated because participating, quote, makes me slow down. A military veteran remains, he recently passed away, actually, this guy. A military veteran remains after 13 years because of the buzz created by the many different channels for participation. Perhaps paradoxically, he seeks ModPo's offline discussions, in-person meetups most of all. A 48-year-old successful professional woman joined to untangle her then recently discerned codependency with her substance abusing spouse. An adult daughter and faraway elderly father, Tracy and Reinhard, planned to, quote, pass notes in class and engaged on the side in a running, juicy dialogue about the TAs, the poets, and the fellow participants. They said they learned a lot about each other.
Let me ask you.
What we did is we interviewed all these people. Why did you do it? Because the MOOC revolution, so-called, is all about using collectivity to generate a brand or to solve a problem or to, and it gets it very top-down organized, and it assumes that people's motivation, in some cases, to earn a little money, that's not possible in ModPo, to get a career benefit. And Coursera, much to my chagrin, believe that people like to take MOOCs because it prepares them for the job market. Well, ModPo, as you can see, for those people and many more, is an alternative to career.
Let me ask you a question about participation via chat rooms and that sort of thing. There are, the chat rooms have been ubiquitous online for years, practically since online was invented, if you will. and some of them, fell apart because people started snarking at one another, or
It's a
there could
great
be
question.
disagreements. The other
Great.
thing is that
Let me take that first, Don.
oh, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, may I?
Sure.
Yeah, last night I was signing letters and doing bills and things, so I always have a movie going on when I do that, and I
Mm,
watched You've Got Mail,
Okay.
and
very good.
those 2 pretty good actually, a little
Yeah.
little treacly, but, those 2 meet in a chat situation. They met in a
Right.
chat room. Look, Don, this is a really good question. First of all, there are about a dozen different ways of interacting. The only thing that resembles a chat is the comment stream during the live webcasts, and we can see all of those. So if somebody's being
Wow.
a jerk, we just knock them out. Um, Second, and I won't list all dozen, but there's many ways to do it. The second, you can read a poem and click on a link you see under the text of the poem in Coursera and go to a discussion forum that's all about that poem, right? So that's
Wow.
asynchronous discussion, asynchronous. Um, and there are other ways.
Oh,
Third,
can you explain the meaning of that term, please, Al, for our
yeah, so a
audience?
synchronous discussion is a chat or what we're doing now,
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
Massive open online courses can only, I mean, most of them, I mean, 99% of them are all asynchronous. They can't be synchronous because no professor other than the insane ones, and you're looking at an insane one, that is to say, not non-standard one, um, would ever do lifetime stuff because they have a life to lead. They have books to write. They have, conference papers to deliver.
Yeah.
Um, so everything is asynchronous, meaning it happens fast, but it happens in like email time. If I send you an email, you might take an hour or a day or even a week to reply to me, right? So that's asynchronous. What we do is we create asynchronous, uh, we don't call it chat, commentary,
Mhm.
response and reply that can be done the next hour or the next day or frankly the next year because we have 12 years of archives of people's comments.
Jesus.
However, however, we generally see because there's so many people in there, almost synchronous replies.
That's
Before I
amazing.
came on the air, even though this is the off season, I go into the ModPo forums and I see who's talking about Emily Dickinson, which is in the first week of the course. That means they're newbies, they've just started, they're a little unsure, and they're introducing themselves. And I like to go in as the guy, the
Yeah.
teacher. I like to go in and say, "This is Al, not AI. Al, Al, A-L, and not AI.
Hard to
This is
tell. Yes.
yeah, it is. This is Al, lowercase l, and I'm so glad you're here, and what you're saying about Dickinson's imagination is really interesting. Would you consider the following question as a follow-up?" I can do that within 45 minutes or even 15 minutes of their having posted it, so it feels synchronous. There's also weekly, each TA, ModPo TA and I offer a weekly live Zoom office hour. Okay. So if you have, which is a lot of fun, we always get 15 or 20 people from around the world in every time zone, and we don't have an agenda. I say to them in my office hour, what poem you want to talk about? So there's no script, nothing scripted, and they have a great time. So, Don, um, MOOCs were plagued by trolls,
Mhm.
just like the chat you were imagining from days of yore.
Right.
There are no trolls in ModPo. In the history of ModPo, there was one person, troll, definition of troll is someone who gets in and wants to pull the thing down
Right.
and alienate people. No
Absolutely.
trolls, no trolls. We jumped from 40,000, 42,000 enrolled in March of 2020 to 75,000 enrolled by May of 2020, pandemic,
Yeah. Yep.
without a single troll. In fact, they were the sweetest people in the world because they had nothing else to do but read
Hmm.
poetry.
Oh,
We really became a model. It's also covered in the book. We became a model for what teachers were scrambling to do in every school at every level in the spring of 2020.
Yeah.
And many ModPo people went out and told people how to do it because they learned.
that's great.
So, a couple of weeks ago, writer's house at the University of Pennsylvania, Kelly Writer's House, feted you and invited you to come talk about your book, talk about the history of ModPo. And I watched online, and I saw this look of just incomprehension often cross your face as you talked about what this is, just what it is, that it's this decentered virtual thing. It's not a classroom. First of all, it's not a classroom. That's the one thing it's not. Hundreds of thousands of people talking about poetry of the 20th century, I suppose. I don't know where you draw the line. I don't know how new
21st.
So it slops into this one. Good. So the word modern could include contemporary, maybe sometimes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
And that this thing is happening at all. And it struck you anew several times as you were talking to us. And that's when that uncomprehending look crossed
Yeah.
your face. Could you talk about just being part of something like this?
Yeah.
And it's so hard to describe, but it's there. It's a real thing. It's a concrete reality as much as this can be.
Yeah. Yeah, John, that's a sweet question. Thank you. Well, I mean, look, when you've done something for 40 years, you got to find something new. And I've taught this course almost, word for word. That we've added new poems, but in all that time. So I'm always interested in. I mean, we created the Writer's House so that people could walk in the door and be amazed, and sit there and offer something about a Dickinson poem that I had never thought before. And that sounds like a bullshit cliche, but I don't think it's true. And you know this, John. 'Cause
Yes.
you can have endless conversations about what's going on in an opaque, beautifully opaque line of poetry.
Yep.
And the way in which people, and this is one of your favorite topics, the way in which people take a traditional form that's hundreds of years old, if not thousands of years old, and do something new with it, invention, imagination, and to 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 be able to see not 15 or 100, but thousands of people realize that this is really cool and really difficult it's almost an unbelievable privilege, really an honor, to have created something that thousands of people can actually appreciate in that way. It's real. This is education. There was a guy in Athens the first year, 2012.
Yes.
Guy, yes, Niklos, I think his name was, and he had been told by his family that his last heart attack was going to be his most recent heart attack was going to be the last one, and that he really needed to stay home, and he needed to stop going out and sitting at the coffee shop, drinking the strongest coffee, and he was just going to collapse one of these days at the coffee shop, and that would be the end. And I remember, and he found ModPo, and his grandchildren had to help him with the technology, and he was the most relentless student. There is no way in hell, when I signed on to be an assistant professor at the University of Pennsylvania in 1985, that it could have possibly considered being Nicholas's teacher in the last months of his life. There's not any way. That's teaching. I mean, come on. We have the tools. Why the hell aren't we doing it?
Exactly. Exactly.
You're intersecting with hundreds of thousands of individual lives in ways, obviously and bizarrely, you will not learn, but you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And let me ask my second question, Al.
Hey, Don, can I ask you a question about your first question?
Sure.
Trolls are bad, right? And we do worry.
Yeah, we do.
And I guess I'm not asking you a question, I'm commenting further. You
Okay.
can respond.
This is the response
But
part
I
two.
I am tired of the henny pennyism of many people who feel like, oh, you're unleashing the online. There are going to be some bad people out there. They're going to try to scam your social security number from you.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever. Those people don't go anywhere near a course on poetry. And if they do, the ModPo citizenship kicks them out. They will be discovered within 5 minutes. And so I would beg everyone who, I mean, you don't feel this, you were just channeling others because you're an online guy. But we really have to stop worrying so much about online culture, so-called. There are ways to do humane non-AI, right? And not to worry so much about automation. Yes, automation comes with all of this, but I don't think if we worry about it, we're ceding the ground to, the profit-making, eyeball-catching people.
Right.
I wanna be eyeball-catching for a sonnet, and so I'm into the competition. Sorry, Don, I just had to.
Well, that leads into my other question. That is, this is a poetry critique course where your people come on, they read established poets, and they try to see what they got out of that poet. Has this spurred any of your students to create their own poetry? This must have,
You're a
right?
good interviewer.
Thank
Because
you.
that's I'm glad this came up because it's really important. The students cannot be held down. They're in charge of the forums. So, and they can create subforums and thread levels. So they immediately in 2012, I hadn't intended this to be a creative writing or a workshop. They created a subforum where people can write and submit their own poems. And that's the liveliest forum in the whole course.
Oh, yeah.
And so this has generated publications, this has generated magazines, this has generated relationships across all the continents, or at least all but one continent, where poets are actually collaborating. There was an in-person meetup last week in Tokyo with a woman named Alana who lives in Northern California and remotely because of certain environmental sensitivities. And she and her partner are in Tokyo. And through ModPo, we've connected them with some Japanese, Japan-based and Japanese ModPo pals, including an engineer poet by the name of Yosuke Tanaka, who's become a friend, and they convened at coffee shops every 2 weeks and have now videotaped one of their discussions of a translation of a Dickinson poem into Japanese that will now be added to the course roster of videos. And that all happened because people wanted to make their own poems and to connect as poets. So yes, and during the pandemic, it went wild. There were people writing poems. The place was dominated by their poems. Some are really interesting. Many are just god awful, but it doesn't matter. They're there.
No, does. Well, Al Filreis, I'd love to have you back on sometime. Your book is The Classroom and the Crowd. It's published by Columbia University Press. It's out there now. It's really a good read. I actually sort of was on the edge of my seat as you approached Coursera and bossed them the hell around the room. It was amazing. But also to read about how the course, it's not that it's taken on a life of its own. It's found the life it was going to have. It's found the level it was going to take. And that was the level of the participants. It's so inspiring. And
Thank you.
folks, if you want to get a taste of it, there's only one way to do that. Look, check it out, and you might like it. I always tell people about poetry. You know what's funny about poetry? You might like it.
You know what? For your listeners, John,
Yes.
they can use the code CUP20 and get 20% off. Yes.
Yeah.
CUP20.
CUP20.
Is that cap? CUP? Cap CUP?
I think lowercase will work, but no hyphen. CUP20 when you log out, and you will get a 20% discount. And be sure to mention John and Don.
And thank you for listening to the Musical Innertube.
Send us an email at musicalinnertube, all one word, @gmail.com.
Or log into our website, musicalinnertube.com, and click on the microphone in the lower right-hand corner to leave us a voicemail.
And while you're on our website, take a few minutes to listen to past episodes of the podcast. A along with pictures and biographies of our guests, blog posts, and lots more.
Our thanks to virtual band Car Radio Dog for providing us with our theme music.